Hello and welcome to the Motorsport Content podcast. On this channel, we'll be talking about everything motorsport, especially Formula 1. I'm your host DD, and joining me is my friend and your co-host Vedant. On this episode, we will be talking about what we think is going to happen in the 2021 Formula 1 season. So, let's grab our chai, take our seats, ready our opinions, and dive right into the conversation. Hello Vedant, it's great to have you here.
Hello Divya, it's great to be here. It's been a long time coming.
Absolutely. I am looking forward to the 2021 season. I think it's going to be one hell of a season. I'm really excited about the midfield battle and to see what happens and how it unfolds.
Yes, definitely. The midfield will be spectacular this season. Just like it was last season, but maybe better. Hopefully better.
Absolutely. And I'm really excited to see what you think is going to happen too and compare it to what I feel is going to happen. So let's dive right into it. So first up, what we'll do is we're going to talk about the Constructors' Championship order.
Yeah, sure. But I guess the top two, we know the top two will be Mercedes and Red Bull. So we can just start at P3,
Absolutely. We could totally do that. I totally agree with you that Mercedes and Red Bull will be P1 and P2 in the Constructors at the end of the season. So let's start with P3 then.
All right. I think McLaren will retain their P3 in the championship solely because of their consistency and of course of their new power unit, the Mercedes power unit.
Absolutely. I totally agree with you there. Even I put down on my list that McLaren will finish P3 once again at the end of the season, even if they're not the third fastest car out there, just because as we saw in the 2020 season, they are a very well-oiled unit. They work very well together. And they also have Danny Rick, who's a very experienced driver coming into the team, and I think he'll be able to pick up the car and drive his heart out in that car from the get go.
Yes.
So now,
absolutely.
Talking about P4 in the Constructors' Championship, I think Aston Martin Racing will retain the P4 position because I think Seb is going to do well in that car, and moreover, we know that the Mercedes backend, which is really successful in the 2020 season, will be used by the Aston Martin team. So I think that will be a great technical benefit going into the season. What do you think about it?
Yeah, I definitely agree with you that Aston Martin will be P4, and I think Seb Vettel will be instrumental in that. How he goes about his resetting.
Absolutely. I totally agree with you. I know there's a lot of speculation whether Seb can come back or not, but we've seen, when he switched from Red Bull to Ferrari, how he reset himself and he put in those performances until things started to go downhill once again for him. But yeah, totally. What about P5? Who do you think is going to finish P5 in the Constructors at the end of the 2021 season?
I think Alpine again will retain their P5 position. I think Ferrari will not reach that level yet. They still have some work to do. But I think Alpine will retain their position.
That is really interesting because being a Ferrari fan myself, I am backing Ferrari to finish P5 instead of P6 like last year. I know it's not a huge jump in the constructor standings, but if you look at the pace deficit and if you look at the number of points, there's a substantial amount there. But I'm backing Ferrari because I feel they are a better unit going into 2021 than Alpine will be. We have Charles Leclerc and Carlos Sainz, and Ferrari is going to get a new power unit. So I'm really looking forward to it, and I feel they will work better as a team, compared to Fernando and Esteban in the same team with Alpine and a huge, we know Alpine just went under a huge organizational restructure. So keeping all of that in mind, I just feel Ferrari will finish P5. But that's good. So which means like on my list, I have Alpine to finish P6 in the constructors.
Yeah, I have Ferrari on P6, but I think Alpine, the restructure at Alpine, is the key important thing that will keep them afloat above Ferrari, and because I'm backing on that very much, and Fernando Alonso coming back is a huge boost for them in terms of the team morale as well, because of two-time world champion coming to your team is is huge. So I think Alpine might just might just beat Ferrari at the end of the season.
I understand what you're looking at, and how the organizational restructure should help, but I feel that has a more long-term impact than a short-term impact on Alpine, because when the development for the 2021 car started at Alpine, which was then Renault, it was still under Cyril and the same organization instead of what it is now. So I feel the benefits of the restructure will be felt by Alpine in the coming years rather than in the 2021 season. And moreover, we have seen how even young drivers who've just been out of Formula One for a year have struggled to come back and perform at the very best. And Fernando has been out for 2 seasons. We haven't seen him race regularly in any certain World Championship series. So I feel it'll be like a huge adjustment for Fernando. And later on in the podcast, you'll see one of my predictions that also revolves around that. But we'll come to that later. Anyway, let's move on with this. So I have AlphaTauri for the P7 in the Constructors' Championship, which I think you'll agree with.
I agree with you.
Absolutely. So, not much debate there. We know, AlphaTauri is not taking Red Bull's, 2020 rear end for their own reasons, which again brings an important point, which we might come on to later. Is does that show that Red Bull is serious about not continuing, after the 2021 season in case there's no engine freeze, and this might be like a precursor to that Red Bull AlphaTauri partnership that might come to an end at the end of the season if Red Bull
that is a lot of speculation. That is
absolutely yes. That's one for the controversy theorists. It's not for this podcast, but yeah. Anyway, let's move on. Now the bottom 3, more like the back end of the Formula 1.5 as we call them. Who do you think is going to finish P8? Is there going to be a reshuffle or not?
I think Alfa Romeo will still finish P8. I think Williams have a fundamental issue in their aerodynamic package, which they won't be able to overcome this season. And among Haas and Alfa Romeo, obviously Alfa Romeo Sauber are a better team with better drivers and a better oiled team environment.
It's definitely a hard one to call, because I said it'll be Williams, and I only said that because the Williams-Mercedes partnership has taken a step forward. We have George Russell in that team, who's done well in the Williams. He's fallen short a couple times last season, and Williams didn't score any points, as we already know. But I really think Williams is going to make a step forward this season with Josh Capito in the seat and with George Russell and Nicholas Latifi. So I'll still stick with my predictions.
The Mercedes partnership you're talking about, the new gearbox that they're getting, that is for 2022, right? That is not for 2021. So I think that fundamental difference, the main aerodynamic issue that they have since 2015 onwards will remain, and I think that would be key.
Well, yeah, I guess then I'll have to agree with you there. I really thought it was for the 2021 season for some reason.
Okay.
I might have misread the news, but yeah. Anyway, so yeah, I guess I'll go with Alfa Romeo in the P8 position too. So what's your last 2 in that list of Constructors' Championship?
Yeah, as I said, Williams will be last. They might score points, but they still will be last, and Haas will be 9.
I'm not going to agree with that at all. Like, I backed Williams for P8 and then I stepped down, but I'm gonna back Williams for a P9 because Haas has 2 new drivers. They have 2 new rookies in the car. Although we know that Ferrari's personnel have moved to Haas for support, and they have a better organization than they have ever had and more technical power. But I still feel that George Russell and Nicholas Latifi will be able to take charge and move ahead of Haas over the 2021 season. That might change later on, but I'm pretty sure that's what's going to happen at this point of time.
Yeah, it's a very rational thing to guess, because of course the 2 rookies is a vital part in the team, and Absolutely. If they don't click, they might be last. But I think, as I said, Williams, the aerodynamic package is still too poor to overtake any car.
Absolutely, I guess. I guess then in our Constructor Championship orders that we think the 2021 season will end in, we differ in 2 places. The first being where Ferrari and Alpine are. So the P6 and P7, P5 and P6 positions. You have said Alpine to finish P5, followed by Ferrari in P6, and I have said the exact opposite of that. And the next part where we disagree is Williams and Haas finishing P9 and P10. So you've said Williams will finish P10, Haas will finish P9, but I don't agree with that. So we'll see how that unfolds. I'm really excited for the 2021 season, like I said before. So yep, we'll see. Now, the next thing on our agenda today is talking about teammate rivalries and who'll come out on top. There's a lot of new teammates, a couple new drivers, so there's a lot to look forward to in terms of new teammate rivalries. We definitely lost the bromance between Lando and Carlos at the end of last season, with Carlos moving to Ferrari and Danny Rick coming into McLaren. But I think that is another bromance in the F1 paddock that we all are hoping, materializes, and at least I am really looking forward to it, So we'll see how that goes. So what I'm going to do is we're going to move down in the championship order for Constructors Championship order for 2020 and discuss our teammate rivalries for 2021. So first up, I have Lewis Hamilton and Valtteri Bottas. I don't think that's a huge, thing to think about. I think that's
Lewis. Hamilton for sure.
Absolutely. We're just waiting for him to sign the contract again, which is really interesting. There has been no news. No one has come forward and said what's going on. So I think the shroud of mystery still surrounds that. But I'm pretty sure Lewis will race in the 2021 season, and he will win that teammate rivalry. More so after winning his 8th F1 title and, breaking all records. So moving on to the next one. This one's an interesting one. Max Verstappen and Sergio Perez. Although Max is the favorite here, I feel a lot of people are backing Sergio to take the fight to Max. What do you think about it?
Well, he will take the fight to Max. He won't stay back, obviously. But I still think the way the Red Bull team is structured, Max will be favored a lot. And he will still come out on top because the public perception is that the car is built around him, right? So I think Max will have an upper hand in that team and come out on top.
I totally agree with you. I think Max is definitely he's a veteran. Not only now in F1, he's not just one of the best drivers, but he's a veteran of the Red Bull team. So it'll be a big adjustment for Sergio, but I think Max will definitely come out on top too. So P3 in the Constructors Championship were McLaren last year. So we have Daniel Ricciardo and Lando Norris. Now I'm backing Danny Rick to, just drive the car out from the get-go. I have a lot of belief in him, and I think he's gonna not only just take the fight to Lando, he's gonna show him up and finish ahead of him. In fact, I would go ahead and say Daniel Ricciardo is gonna finish best of the rest in the Drivers' Championship almost.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you in both your points. I know that Danny Rick might finish ahead of Lando because of his experience and his abilities, and I absolutely agree that he will be best of the rest. Again, because of what he brings to the car.
Absolutely, and I don't think Lando's going to make it any easy. We've seen how fast and furious Lando was from the get-go last season in Austria when he finished P3, I think, and I think he's going to be chasing Daniel Ricciardo, which should be great for McLaren, to finish P3 in the Constructors' Championship. All right, so next up, we had Aston Martin Racing finish P4 in the Constructors last year. So we have Sebastian Vettel and Lance Stroll for that teammate rivalry. Now I'm backing Seb to turn a page and take it all out against Lance. He is, in my opinion, the leading light in that team, and Aston Martin have backed him too for that specific purpose, and they let go Sergio because of that very reason.
Yeah, absolutely. Sebastian Vettel, we all hope that he will lead that team and he will lead that team right, and we all hope that he gets his mojo back and he finishes better than he did. He races better than he did this season in 2020, and yeah, I agree with you that he might finish ahead of Stroll.
So you're backing Seb to finish?
Yeah.
To win that teammate rivalry, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. That is surprising. We've agreed on teammate rivalry so far, which is sort of annoying for this podcast because I was hoping for more disagreement. But anyway,
But I think we might get some disagreements ahead.
yeah, probably. Let's see. Let's move on. So P6 Ferrari. So this year we have Carlos Sainz in that second Ferrari seat and Charles Leclerc. I think that car has been hard to drive for Seb. It's not going to be an easy adjustment for Carlos. I know Carlos is a young and he's a great driver. He's shown that not only in his Toro Rosso days, he's shown it at Renault and for the last 2 years at McLaren. But I think it's still going to be an adjustment period there, and Charles is going to take it away during that period, even if it's close, 5-6 races into the season.
Well, I think Carlos will finish ahead of Charles. And
why is that?
I have no concrete reason for that. I'm just a
Okay.
huge fan of Carlos, and
So you're just going on that gut feeling.
a man can dream, and
I'm
but-
pretty sure there's a lot of dreams coming forward with our predictions about the season 2021.
but Carlos Sainz is a very very talented driver, but I think Charles Leclerc he qualified very well last season, but he did make a few mistakes in the races,
That is true, but we've seen what Charles can do with that car. We've seen him drive
Yeah, I
his
know,
heart
I know.
out, finish on the podium.
I think I know that this prediction is very optimistic, but
Yeah,
Hey.
I feel like that. Yeah, I don't know how many people will agree with you there. I personally don't, so we'll see how that unfolds. And I hope Ferrari can do better with that rivalry. I think there's been a lot of speculation too that Charles Leclerc and Carlos Sainz might explode. That might become like a really fierce rivalry at Ferrari. And I hope that it doesn't become detrimental. Like how Seb and Charles started colliding at the end of the 2019 season, and even in the 2020 season, there were times when Charles rather upset Seb, I'd say, with his moves. So, for the sake of
I
Ferrari,
think that
I'll
dynamic
just say
was-
they get along.
yeah, that dynamic was different, and this might be different. So, I think Carlos is a very decent driver, decent human being. So I don't see any.
But he's a
problems
fierce
coming
racer, so what happens on track and off track might be different, but it's gonna
Yeah,
be
you're
fierce
right about
nonetheless.
Yeah,
All right,
let's see.
moving on to sorry.
Let's see.
Yep,
What
yep,
happens?
absolutely. Moving on to P7, we have Yuki Tsunoda, a rookie coming from F2. Really impressed everyone in the F1 paddock, all the fans, everybody loves him. And his matchup is against Pierre Gasly. We know Pierre had a hard time at Red Bull, but he's shown what he can do in that Toro Rosso, now AlphaTauri. He's shown time and again how much he's won with that car. He's shown what he can do with that car time and again. And I'm going to back Pierre Gasly to still be ahead of Yuki Tsunoda at the end of the season. On one hand, it's like I'm still torn because on one hand I want Pierre to do really well and keep his seat in Formula 1. But on the other hand, I feel if Yuki were to do really well and beat Gasly, that tussle for the second seat at Red Bull would become really interesting with Alex, Sergio, and Yuki in the mix.
Yeah, but you're right about the Red Bull seat. But Tsunoda being a rookie up against Pierre Gasly, who has had a rebirth of sorts in Formula
Absolutely.
1. So I think Gasly is a sure shot winner in this matchup.
Okay, alright. So moving on to P8. So that was Alfa Romeo for us. Alfa Romeo Sauber Racing. And we have Kimi Räikkönen and Antonio Giovinazzi. Now something interesting here was Kimi finished ahead of Antonio, just ahead of Antonio in the Drivers' Championship, but they had the same number of points. That was 4 and 4. I'm backing Antonio to win the matchup this year and to tell the world that he is in fact learning and getting better with each passing race.
Oh, so I thought we might differ here, but apparently we agree on that.
As much as I love Kimi and I love his pace, I love the man himself, I love his all the memes that are on him, and just Kimi being there in the F1 paddock makes me happy. But I just feel that it's time for Antonio to step up and show the world what he's capable of.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah,
Especially after
absolutely.
he said he was expecting that 2021 Ferrari seat to go to him, which was somewhat surprising to me. But I can't say what goes on in the paddock. But I feel it's time that Antonio scored a lot more points than he did last season.
Absolutely, because Antonio Giovinazzi we have seen over the 2 years he has grown as a driver, as a racer, and I think everyone has a age limit and expiry date per se, and I think Kimi Raikkonen reached his in 2020. He did a very spectacular start in Portimao, and I love that start. One of my best moments of the season.
Yep,
But
absolutely.
but I think Giovinazzi will grow more. He has more potential right now, and he'll grow it.
He had a few unlucky races too. I think he got unlucky in Belgium when he was running in the points last season once again, or something like that. But to your point that everybody had an expiry date, don't say that yet because we have Fernando Alonso coming back into F1.
Oh,
So
yeah,
he's
my bad.
We have another veteran in F1, so don't say that yet. Although he is a young rookie because he tested in the young drivers test, he's a young rookie coming to F1. But don't say that age is an expiry date. Don't tell him that. All right. Moving on. Next we have Haas. They scored, I think 3 points last season, finishing P9 in the championship. But 2 new drivers in that lineup: Mick Schumacher and Nikita Mazepin. I'm not going to say much. I'm just going to back Mick Schumacher to score those points for Haas and call it good. They're not going to score a lot of points. We know that.
And I agree. Like even if they score 2 points, I hope that Mick scores it, because I'm backing him to beat Nikita in the championship.
Absolutely. I'm going to back Mick there. We're not going to debate much about that. Moving on to P10. Williams, we have George Russell and Nicholas Latifi. Now, George Russell beat Nicholas Latifi out and out, throughout the entire season. So I don't think there's going to be much of a debate here. We're going to back George, to score those points for Williams before Nicholas does. Although there were points last season when we thought Nicholas was going to score the points before George gets to.
Yeah.
Because George binned his chances quite a few times during the course of the season last year. So yeah, but I'm still going to back George.
Yeah, I agree with you. George Russell has shown potential, has shown talent, and we know he's one of the best on the field. So if Williams score points, which I hope they do, George Russell might be the point scorer.
Absolutely.
I think we missed Alpine.
Did we?
In the order.
Oh yes, I'm so sorry. Yep. We didn't talk about Fernando Alonso and Esteban Ocon. I don't know what happened there. But anyway, thank you for reminding me. Fernando Alonso and Esteban Ocon. What do you think? This is a spicy one. This will be very controversial because we have huge Fernando following, and we have those who've been backing Esteban to be, we had people backing Esteban to drive for Mercedes at one point. Then he did really well with Racing Point through the season. Then he got kicked out of there. And I feel he did well in his first, after like a 1 year sabbatical at Renault.
Yeah.
So what do you think about it?
I agree with you that he did pretty well in 2020 with Renault. But as a Fernando fan myself, I'll be a little biased here. And I'll say that Fernando will beat Esteban Ocon in the championship. That is not just my fanboy talking, but I think genuinely Fernando might just beat Esteban. His drive, his motivation right now is quite good, and the fact that he knows that this car is capable of getting to podiums might just multiply his motivation right now.
I mean, I agree with you. Fernando has done wondrous things in any car he's been in. He drove that Renault during his World Championship seasons the way the other drivers couldn't. His teammates just couldn't keep up with him, and he's done very well in the Ferrari during his Ferrari days. But I feel the game has changed a little bit since Fernando was last year. He was in the McLaren. It was not even in the midfield when he was in Formula 1 last. So I think it's going to be a big adjustment. And even though he's been in that car for Renault, he's done a couple tests, FP1 or whatever. But I still think Esteban will have the upper hand going into the season, and that is what will make the difference at the end of the season. Just Esteban being more familiar with that car going into the season. So I'm going to back Esteban to win that rivalry, because I also want Esteban to, keep his Renault seat at the end of the season going into 2022, because there has been speculation about Pierre not going to Red Bull anymore at all. So, the most, I guess, the simplest answer to where Pierre will go in the future would be Renault. And
Alpine, yeah.
Sorry, yeah, Alpines. so I feel like I'm becoming crafty right now. But yeah, you know, so it'll be interesting because if PM moves to Alpine, will they want to retain Fernando at the end of the season or Esteban? And I want Esteban to go because Fernando's almost 40, so might as well bow out, try a few different things like he's been doing. I'm all for Fernando to win the Indy 500, but I'd still like to see Esteban in F1 in 2022. All right, so that was our teammate rivalry section of the podcast. Now we're gonna make some wild guesses rather than predictions to some of the questions that we thought up, which are interesting and as a result of like the 2020 season. So let's get right into them. The first question that I have for you, Vedant, is how many races will we have at the end of the season?
Well, that is interesting because I think Formula One has been way too optimistic with the 23 race calendar.
I agree.
We have already seen races getting postponed and potentially cancelled with Australia and China and Vietnam. And I think at the end of the season, since the COVID situation around the world is improving, so they can be optimistic. But I still think at the end of the season, 23 races will not be possible when we reach Abu Dhabi. I think it will be 20 races. That 3 races might get cut out here and there.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking.
Which most likely will be street races.
Absolutely.
And I think 20 is a good number to have.
Yeah, I was just looking at the F1 race calendar before we started recording, and I still have it up here. And we have a lot more street races, like you would have in the usual F1 calendar. And we have a lot of away races that we didn't have last year, like, Japan, and then Australia got cancelled at the last moment last year, which has been moved to later on this year. But yeah, I'm not, and all of the Americas, we didn't have Florida, we didn't have
American
Canada, and I'm in the US. I know the situation. It's really early on, and the race at Kota is in, I think, October. But I don't see the condition improving multifold throughout the year, just from what it seems right now and where we are. So I wouldn't say we would have more than 20 races either. So I agree with you on that. We'll probably lose a couple of street races, and I think the problem is that F1 is trying to commit to this calendar as much as they can. So I think there'll be more, although it's early on in the season, we aren't even at testing yet, but I think they'll be reluctant to change it, and they'll try all they can to go to those places to keep the sponsors happy, and just make sure that all stakeholders for F1 are happy, which is fair enough. And we would love to go to Japan, Mexico, Brazil, and all those places. Yes, definitely.
I think at the end of it, the decision won't be on the COVID, the coronavirus cases, the number of cases a country has, but the more on the logistical problems the countries have.
Absolutely, yeah.
So that's why street races might be a problem.
Yeah, especially like with the couple circuits where we raced twice there, like Bahrain, where we had the 2 different layouts. We're going to Bahrain early on in the year, so the question of going back to Bahrain and racing on a different layout is gone and is not there anymore, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So we're doing away with that, and then we have Australia and United Kingdom early on in the season. So if any of the races after that get cancelled, especially the away races, it'll be hard to replace it because it's I feel like it's harder to host a race when it's easier to host a race back to back on 2 consecutive weekends than to set up the whole thing all over again.
Yes,
I feel there's a lot more logistics involved with that. Alright, so that was that. Moving on to my second question. How many races will have a surprise or unusual podium/winners this year? Now, before we answer that question, I just want to remind our listeners and myself and you that we had quite a few surprise podiums last year. The very first race we had Charles and land on the podium. Then we had obviously the Bahrain race where we had Sergio, Esteban and Lance on the podium with Sergio winning, and then obviously there was Monza, which is another great race. So I think 3 is. Were there any other like really surprising podiums?
We had Danny Rick on the podium twice.
See, that is the thing. The thing is, like, there's no third. Like, we have Mercedes and Red Bull, so there's obviously going to be someone snatching
Well,
that
Mercedes and Red
third
Bull
place.
make 4 drivers, you know.
Yeah, but I feel like it's easier for one person from those 4 to not do as well, especially with Valtteri not being as consistent and Sergio being a new driver. So I feel like we need to define what a surprise or unusual podium will be. Will it be at least 2 different podium places than the top 4 drivers in the top 2 teams?
Yeah, I think we can agree on that. Two podium finishes.
A minimum of 2 different
Yeah,
podium finishes.
yeah.
All right.
Because we are hoping for the team for the field to be much more closer this year, and I think a single podium, a midfield team on the podium might be a more regular sight this year. So I think two places are good.
All right. So keeping that in mind, how many unusual or surprising podiums will we have this year, and what makes you think that?
Well, keeping that in mind, I guess my answer has changed a bit. But I thought, any single person from the midfield on the podium might count as an answer. But since we have changed the terms, I think it will be 4. Just a random conservative number.
All right. I don't know. Let's see. We have Seb in the Aston Martin. We have Danny Rick. We have Charles, and we have Fernando. I'd go for almost 5 surprise podiums this year. I feel, and I'll elaborate on this later on when we come down to our random predictions at the end of the podcast. But I feel there's going to be more drama than we expect from Red Bull. I just don't feel Red Bull will have a very smooth season, especially with Honda throwing everything they have at their engine. But anyway, that's for later. We'll come back to that. But I think there's going to be 5 surprise podiums, even with even if you're counting 2 surprise winners, especially with more races this year. I feel we have a better chance of having more surprise podiums, even if it's really optimistic thinking.
Yeah,
I'm gonna back myself there. All right, on to the next question. Are we gonna have rain at a race? And if so, how many rain affected races are we gonna have? Now I'm a big skeptic.
We need rain at races. We need that. But I guess again, being overly conservative with regards to our predictions, I won't say 8 or 10, but I'll say
Oh, you can have 10 races where there's a threat of rain. But
yeah, threat of rain is different. There might be rain at the neighboring field,
Yeah, but it won't be on the track.
It won't rain at the stadium, at the circuit. It might rain after the race, but
it might rain in the practice session, but will it rain in the race? Will it rain in qualifying? Let's also account for qualifying, just not the race, because rain in the qualifying can also spice things up. So will we have any rain in the qualifying or the race? And so
I guess 5 races qualifying, 5 weekends qualifying and
that's
race.
Really optimistic, Vedant. That is so optimistic. That's as optimistic as me telling the people that there'll be 5 unusual podiums and two different podium places in all those 5 times. I'm just gonna go with 2.
All right.
And I think the most likely one is gonna be Belgium, and then there'll be one other one. Maybe throughout the season, maybe in Mexico towards the end of October. But it's hard to say because I don't see chances of rain in Monaco or Canada or Austria early on in the season. Maybe in the UK. In the UK, you just never know when it's going to rain. So
yeah,
that might be one. So I'm just gonna back myself for 2. I'm gonna go conservative there. Not much expectations from the rain gods after a disappointing season last year.
Yeah, I know.
Yep. And then the next question is, how many red flags are we going to see this season? Now, I tried to come up with a number, but I had a really hard time because I tried to go back and see, okay, how many red flags did we have last season? And it was just way too many for one season. And it just blew my mind. So it's been hard for me to calculate this number, so I'm just going to throw some random number out. But what do you think is going to happen?
I think the stewards and the race control people learned a few things from last year. And I think they'll react to situations better. So, keeping that in mind, I think 3 red flags is what I think will happen. It is optimistic.
I feel that's not optimistic at all after last season,
Oh, okay. No, that's what I'm saying.
At all.
That's what I'm saying. The people in the race control.
So when we're
Have
talking
learned-
about red flags, that just means the races, right? And we're not talking outside
Yeah,
the
only
races.
only
Yeah,
the races.
only in the
only
races. Yeah. So you're saying 3? I think that's.
Yeah.
I don't know.
What do you think?
It's really hard after last season, man. It's really hard because last season was crazy. We had 2 red flags in Mugello, I think, and then a couple more in Monza, or 1 more in Monza, and then we had Romance crash in Sakir, and then
Yeah.
I think we had like a couple more red flags somewhere throughout the season.
Yeah, we did have them, but
And
that's what
especially
I'm
we have a
saying,
lot
you
of
know.
rookies this year, I feel. So
There are 3 rookies. There were 3
Yeah.
rookies in 2019.
yeah, but I just feel like these are. I don't know. I just feel like the rookies that were in 2019 were much. I just felt they had a greater caliber. They were more talented than the rookies coming in this season. That's just my opinion. Let's not make it
Yeah,
controversial now.
No, it's fine. It's fine.
So I just believe in the talent more than I believe in the talent of the new rookies we have this season. But
What is your number, man?
I'm gonna go for 4. I'm gonna go for 4.
Yeah, that's all right. A difference
Yeah.
of 1 is quite.
Yeah, it's not
Rational.
very bold, but yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, just to keep it interesting. Alright, so the next one is. So I'm not sure about this one. I think there was did you come across a figure about the total number of track limit infringements throughout the season?
No. I don't remember that, but I'm pretty sure that was a very high number.
I don't know, but I think I came across an article by GP blog. I'm not going to comment because that was the first time I ever saw an article by them, and they said there was like 722 track infringements throughout the season, and there was like one race with 125 track limit infringements. So do you want
I
to put a
think
number to
that's-
this, or do you want to just
yeah.
take this question?
We can put a random
All right, I'm gonna say
two random number.
I'm gonna say 1,000. Just because there's more races
1,000?
this season. Just because there's more races this season.
All right.
Well, the number said 722 for 17 races.
Yeah,
So
you're
I'm
right.
just gonna say
Right about
1,000.
that. Well, I guess I'll go a little more than 722, but a little less than 1,000. So I guess 800 would be a good number.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know. I'm not gonna count this. I don't know. We'll see if we get a figure on that at the end of the season. I don't think so, but we'll see. All right. Now I think this is like one of the most interesting questions that I have, which is who will have the most third place finishes?
That is very interesting because if there are top 2 teams, if Mercedes finish top
Yes.
2, then there's Red Bull for the third place.
Yep.
And there's a chances for a midfield team for the third place.
Absolutely. And there's
P3
Max
is very,
and
very
there's
interesting.
Sergio, and we know Max likes to take the fight to the P. He likes to fight for P1. He doesn't like to fight for P2.
But Sergio will be fighting Max.
Yes, so there's a lot going on this season. I feel like it'll be because I think if I was looking at the results from last season, I think the highest number of P3 finishes was shared by Max and Valtteri, and they finished P3 3 times throughout the season. And I think Danny Rick finished P3 twice, and Lewis finished P3 twice. So that was like the most number of P3 finishes, which is kind of surprising when you think it was really only between Lewis, Valtteri, and Max. So
Yeah, number 3 is too less
Yeah.
for them.
So it was really interesting looking back at those results. So I feel it's gonna be. I want to say Valtteri, but then I'm torn. Max. I just don't know which way to go. So I'll let you go first again.
I think it will be Valtteri. I think another season in Lewis Hamilton's rearview mirror will not be good for him, and I think Max, with Sergio's help, might just, and Sergio with Max's help, they'll just Valtteri is a very, very paradoxical character in the paddock, and you want him to do well.
Yeah,
But
absolutely.
then
but
again-
you get disappointed every time you
Yeah.
want him to do well.
So I think Valtteri will have the most P3 finishes this season.
I think I'm gonna have to agree with you there. So especially with Sergio in that second Red Bull seat, and if he does well, it'll be. I feel it'll be really hard for Ian Valtteri to win those many P3s, because we know that Valtteri kind of breaks under pressure a lot of times throughout the season. So I almost want to say Sergio now, but I'm not going to do that. I'm gonna keep Valtteri to win most P3s throughout the season. And then again, I get a lot of that will also matter, on the fact that how the teams adapt to the new rules and regulations, because it might just happen that Mercedes do really well again, and it might just be a straight out P1, P2 for the Mercedes duo.
Yeah, absolutely.
And Red Bull might fall away with the new rules, but again, it might happen the other way around. We don't know. So I'm gonna agree with you there. And the next question I have is, which driver will have the most number of fastest laps?
That is again interesting, because fastest lap, we know if you have a pit stop gap with the car behind, you can go for a fastest lap easily at the end of the race. And I'll go for Max Verstappen here, because we know he does use that opportunity very well. He goes for that fastest lap with that pit stop gap. So
see, I'm gonna say
I'll go with Max.
I'm gonna say Sergio, because I want Max battling Hamilton up there. I'm gonna be optimistic about it, and I want Max to be at least in the mix, because if you're backing Valtteri to be P3, right? I don't think there's gonna be a huge gap between Hamilton, Max, and Valtteri for Max to make a pit stop and lose that P2. Unless
absolutely, but
especially with those new tires. So I'm gonna back Sergio, who will have a gap between the Red Bull teams, like the Red Bull pace, so like either Valtteri or Max, and with the midfield teams of McLaren, and he's gonna really relish that gap and put in those fastest laps at the end of every race. So I'm gonna back Sergio for that one.
Yeah, but I think the midfield teams do take away a lot of fastest laps during the final lap of the race, where they are just pushing,
Yeah, that is true, but don't you think if Alex Albon last season, if he was running P4 throughout the season, he could have made that pit stop and hung on to that fastest lap at the end of every race? Because we didn't see midfield teams very close at the end of the race. It was usually like a 30-second gap to P3. So I feel like Alice would have had that chance, but we'll see how that unfolds. So I'm gonna back Sergio for this one. So that's interesting. You said Max, but I can't agree with you there, just because I want Max to be battling for the top podium place. Alright, on to our last wild question of this podcast. Which driver will make up the most places on the first lap? Now, just to recap, I think Lance Stroll made up the most places on the first lap in the 2017-18 season, something like that. And then we had Antonio Giovinazzi make up the most places last season, which was like 48. And I think the figure for most places made minus most places lost on the first lap, Antonio came out to like a plus 16 figure, whereas Lance Stroll was plus 3, I think. So
yeah, it's a very, very interesting question. You can't have a definitive answer for that.
Absolutely.
And I think the cars towards the back of the field have a much greater opportunity for that.
Absolutely.
But my answer for that is just optimism. It's purely based on optimism. There's no logic behind that. And
you just want it to happen.
Yeah, I just want it to happen, and it's Mick Schumacher.
Oh, that's a great one. I love that answer, and I think Mick did well to make a place in the first laps of F2 too, right?
Yes,
if
definitely.
I'm not wrong. Because I know you followed Formula 2 really closely last season with Mick in that seat.
Yeah, I mean, he has a great racing mind. He might not be good in qualifying.
Yeah, that is one thing I'm worried about.
When during qualifying.
Mick, yep.
But I think his race starts and his racing abilities are quite good, and I think again, as I'm saying, just purely optimism. I just want it to happen. Mick Schumacher.
Yes, especially with the fact that we know that Mick is not the fastest qualifier, so the only way he does well and beats his teammate throughout the season is by making up those places in the first lap. especially in a car like Haas. There's not going to be much overtaking to do for him. But we can only wish. But on that, as an answer to that question, I'm going to back Antonio Giovinazzi because I also backed him up to score more points than Kimi in the teammate rivalry. So I'm going to back Antonio to do the same thing. We know he's not going to qualify, way ahead. The best he qualifies probably like P15, P16. So I'm going to back Antonio for that because I want him to score points too. So I'm going to back Antonio. Now, coming to the most interesting part of our podcast, of our predictions podcast for 2021 season. We're going to make 4 predictions each that do not obviously, refer to the Constructors' Championship or teammate rivalry or any of the questions we have answered so far. These are going to be random. And we're not going to make any silly season predictions either because that is going to be a whole other video on its own about the 2022 silly season. So there's not a whole lot of room to make predictions, but I feel we can come up with some interesting ones moving forward. And there's only one rule to the 4 predictions that we make. There has to be one Fernando prediction in those group of 4 predictions that you make. So I hope you've come prepared. So I hope you've come prepared because I think the one that I have for Fernando is going to sting a little bit to a lot of Fernando fans, but I just think that's how it's going to happen moving forward. So alright, let's dive right into it. I'm really excited about this, so let's get on with it. What's your first prediction? I'll throw it out to you first.
Well, let's start with Fernando. So my Fernando Alonso prediction is, as I said, he will beat Esteban Ocon in the team championship, and I think keeping the team championship aside in the race, the race points, I think he will beat Esteban in the qualifying also.
So you're saying he's not
out-qualify Esteban, yeah.
He's going to out-qualify Esteban throughout the season. He's going to win that qualifying battle. I mean, I feel that's like a really safe bet coming from like a Fernando fan. It's not a huge deal. Alright, don't kill me in the comments for this, guys. If you're listening to this podcast somehow in the first place, don't just come after me because I'm going to say Fernando will not score any points or reach Q3 in the first 3 races of the season.
Alright, yeah.
So that's a bold prediction because not only am I talking about not scoring any points, I'm also talking about Fernando not reaching Q3.
I think Q3 is bold. I think points are alright. He might struggle a bit. I think Q3 is a bit bold given the Alpine car.
Look, I love Fernando, but I was a Fernando fan when he was in Ferrari. I'm just like a Ferrari fan, so I'm going to support any driver who's won the red color, the scarlet color. But I just don't see. It's really hard for me to see Fernando doing well in such a packed midfield right after he comes back into F1. And I've said that I think like 100 times on this podcast, and I feel I'm gonna get it back like 1,000,000 times in the comments for saying what I have. But anyway, I'm gonna stick with it. But again, I'm backing Fernando for some podium finishes because my prediction about the number of unusual podiums that I said 5 will only come true if Fernando does something about it. So trial by fire. All right, I'm gonna go up next with my second prediction. I'm gonna say Mick Schumacher will score more than once for Haas.
Yeah, that's.
I think it's a bold prediction. After I put Haas to be P10.
But still, I think it's still more towards the conservative side because more than once is at least once.
Absolutely.
You are saying at least once or more than once?
I said more than once. So he'll score once, so it'll be more than once, not just once.
All right.
So it has to be more than once. If he scores once, then I don't get the point.
Okay. That's. I think it's a fairly decent prediction. I don't think it's too bold, but all right.
I thought it was pretty bold too. After putting Haas to be P10 in the constructors in my predictions, I was like, ugh, do I really want to do this to myself? But anyway, what about you?
Well, I'll make a Haas prediction myself. I think we know Nikita Mazepin is not the cleanest drivers out there.
Absolutely.
And I think he might earn himself some penalty points. FIA clears all your penalty points on your super license when you join F1, so he won't get a race ban outright this season. But I think he'll earn himself 4 penalty points.
So at least 4, or just which is the number 4.
Yeah, I mean at least 4.
All right, that's
number 4.
That's
yeah.
interesting. I don't know. I've never followed Nikita Mazepin through his junior career, so I can't add much to that conversation. And I know there's a lot of controversy regarding his place in F1, which is fairly warranted, and what he did was absolutely disrespectful. And I wish FIA made an example out of it and publicly made a statement at least, or took concrete steps to combat such disrespectful behavior in the paddock and outside the paddock, and especially with the We Races One movement that F1 is trying to promote. Let's move forward and move on to our third prediction.
So, alright, I'll go first. I think we had 2 midfield teams winning races last season, right?
Yeah,
I think it will be...
We had Racing Point and
Alpha Tauri.
Yep.
So I think it will be at least 3 instances of midfield teams winning races.
I mean, more power to you, because if that comes true, then my predictions also comes true a little bit.
Yeah.
So more power to you, and it'll just be an interesting season. It'll just make the season more interesting. So I'm all for it. I'm rooting for you here, Vedant. I'm rooting for you.
Thank you.
I'm really rooting for you. That's what I was trying to say. All right. Now my third prediction is Red Bull will have more than 3 power unit related DNFs. So last season they had 3. So I'm saying they're gonna have more than 3. And that is why I made that that comment that about more unexpected podiums this season, because I feel Honda is throwing everything at that PU, and because we know in the 2020 season Honda had the mindset that they're gonna really develop the PU for 2021 earlier on, but they changed their plans because they wanted to stay through 2022. But then after they said they're gonna bow out, they said, okay, we're gonna fast track our development once again. So I feel there's gonna be a lot of niggles, especially after what we saw last year. There's gonna be a lot of problems. Even if the performance is really good, I feel reliability won't be there as much. So I'm backing myself to say, Red Bull will have more than 3 power unit related DNFs this year.
Yeah, I think you might be right there.
I don't think it's like a very bold prediction considering all things.
Yeah, it's not too bold, and I think again with Red Bull having reliability issues, it just makes the midfield battle more spicier,
Absolutely.
And yeah,
all right.
So
on to our last predictions for the day.
All right, so are you going first or should I go first?
Why don't you go first, Vedant?
All right. So I think this is a bold one. This might not come true if your Red Bull power unit predictions come true.
Hey, maybe Valtteri will come true.
But I guess the Constructors' Championship will go down to the last 3 races. Simply because we have Sergio Perez in that Red Bull seat.
That is really optimistic, I must tell you that. Especially looking back at the turbo hybrid season. But I guess that warrants the debate of the Mercedes versus Red Bull development cycle, and the development direction that Red Bull and Mercedes might take through this season, because I feel especially with Red Bull talking about that they're going to bow out of the 2021 season if the engine freeze doesn't come forward and things like that. I feel Red Bull will want to throw everything they have at the season with Honda doing the same.
Yes, definitely.
But if leaving F1 is just a lie and like a hoax or whatever it is, if it's not for real, then I think they might be stepping over their own foot and then making things worse for the upcoming season. Then they'll make the same mistake they made in 2013 when they won the season, and we knew that Mercedes will be a better team coming forward just because of the fact that Red Bull didn't stop developing until the end of the season, unlike Mercedes did, and a few other teams.
Yeah, it's really interesting. The point of when will teams start developing for the 2022 season.
Absolutely.
And I think like every other significant rule change in Formula 1, if you get that right, you might just win a few championships right out in the new era.
Absolutely.
And So
Well, we're going to talk about 2022 in our next podcast, but I'm really excited for that too, especially with the direction that a lot of midfield teams are taking now, and the rules reset should be very exciting. All right, so the last prediction coming from me for this podcast is, I don't know if it's... All right, let me just put it out there. Nicholas Latifi will finally reach Q2.
well, that is I know. I want him to reach that Q2, and when we were thinking about the questions and all, I had thought about putting a question of how many
we had that
Q2s
originally. Yeah, we talked about that.
will Latifi get?
Absolutely.
And I think he might just get one, in maybe rainy conditions, or in maybe when someone has a technical issue, someone ahead has a technical issue and things like that. He might get one. But again, with my earlier prediction that Williams will finish last because of the fundamental issue in the car,
the technical flaw,
I think it will be difficult, but yeah, we'll see.
Absolutely. That's really exciting. We have a lot of predictions, but we'll see how the season unfolds. I'm really excited. We are very optimistic about the 2021 season. We're hoping it's even more exciting and surprising than the 2020 season. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. Any last thoughts from you, Vedant?
Well, we know 2020 was one of the best seasons we have had since 2012, and I think 2021 might just be one better, especially in the midfield battle, because McLaren have their new power unit and all these couple of rebrands and the shuffling of the grid, the drivers moving here and there. But I hope it does bring about good racing. The new technical regulations certainly hope to do so, and yeah, I guess we can just hope,
Yeah, we can just hope,
just
pray,
wait
wish, and see what happens. Well, thank you, Vedant. It was great having you here. Now, before we close, a word for the listeners. If you've somehow found this podcast and have made it this far, thank you so much for listening to us chat about the sport we all love. Please let us know what you think about our predictions, and do let us know what you would want us to talk about in the future. All your feedback is deeply appreciated. Stay tuned to catch all the motorsport content coming your way. We'll catch you on the next one.